All right, let's start this off, y'all.
Hey guys, Rich Richley here. You see, I was rich before I wrote Rich Like Me, Dream Job Equals Money, and Think Happy Thoughts and Money Appears, but those books didn't put brand new golden swimming pools on my roof. You see, I've been leaving money on the table for far too long. By convincing you that I have secrets that nobody else has, you're already sold on anything I put out. Well, now the gloves are off, and this January, my new book, Stop Being So Fat, will help you finally lose those pounds and get built like those people you watch on TV so much. I used to be a massive corn-filled turd that's too big to flush like you, until I learned that reading is definitely the #1 reason that people are in shape. They definitely read a lot of books about how to lose weight and get in shape fast, and now all their secrets are compiled in this easy-to-consume book. No, you don't eat it, stupid. You read it. Football players, MMA fighters, Olympic athletes, and many more all read my book I just wrote to get them where they are today. They probably read my other books too. Now, for the first time ever, I've lost my mind, and I'm selling all 4 of my books for one low price of more than it would be if you bought them individually used from a bookstore. I'm so crazy and stupid for doing this, I'm literally hemorrhaging money by selling you this package at such a crazy low price. Remember, buy Stop Being So Fat today so you can start stopping being so fat tomorrow. Welcome to the Broke Otaku podcast. My name's AJ, and with me is Marcus, a.k.a. Cucksatani Bill.
Cucksatani Bill, where's your wife at? I want her. Cucksatani Bill. I'm coming
Is that
out.
like Captain Planet?
I'm coming out only for your wife, not my wife.
Coming out.
Actually, it should be you're coming for my wife. Oh, well, whatever.
Where should I bring my wife?
Cucksatani Bill, I come out once a year.
Who wants to fuck my wife? Cucksatani.
Cucksatani.
I think those are words that will never be sung ever by anyone.
Good. I hope there's one guy who sings it and then Googles it and he's like, I bet no one has done this. And then he finds our podcast. And then he's a listener. Assuming the transcript is Googleable. Whatever, who cares? And Alan Thunderclap Patterson.
Thunderclap. Patterson. Pat. Clap. Thunderpat. Clapperson.
The Clapperson.
He's a Pokemon.
Son of the Clap.
Patterclap. Thunderson. Patterton.
Sun Clap Thunder. What was the last one? Pat.
Thunderclap.
I feel like
Patterson.
you can measure someone's intelligence by how like quickly they can rearrange the syllables.
Oh, I failed.
That many syllables in different. Yeah,
I'm dumb as fuck then. If that's the measure of intelligence.
Sun Platter Clamp.
You people who are listening who are still going with all the different combinations, you're the real geniuses.
Please let us know in the comments below. Like
Tell
and
us how far you
subscribe.
got.
Hit the bell, and then go hit the bell again.
It's like when you're
And
playing Boggle,
unsubscribe.
and you just keep finding the same word over and over again, and then at the end it's like, why didn't you find encyclopedia? It's like, because only 8 letters, you piece of shit.
That's a really
That's how I
That's
feel,
a
at
really
least.
bad feeling when you get excited that you found a word in Boggle and then you look down and you're like, fuck, I already wrote that. That's how dumb I am.
It's a real problem.
I like the idea of Boggle, but then every time I play, I'm just like, hats, bats. And it's just this, like, it always comes rushing back to me like, this feeling of like living in a box that's only like 2 inches
You peaked
wide.
at 3rd grade. This is all the words I know. 4 letters max.
This feels so limiting.
That's like Scrabble too. You have the word axe like 700 times.
I have better luck with Scrabble, but yeah, it's the same kind of feeling.
Axe, ox, fox, box.
Chicks
Anyway.
on bricks and blicks on blocks.
We have a game, Marcus?
Gamer. We have a gamer. This is AniMadlibs. For those,
Is this
What's
like
that?
Mad Libs?
it is like Mad
but with
Libs,
anime.
formatted a little bit differently, but then not so much. What do I mean? You'll find out. Oh yeah, this is the part where I explain it. For those of you not familiar with Mad Libs, it is a game where you can.
What rock were you living under as a kid?
I mean, they could be like 16 listening to this, and they probably weren't even born the last time that game was ever played on Earth, so it's fine.
Yeah, respect your younglers.
What did you do on car
Hey,
trips?
shut the fuck up. So I didn't explain this shit. Y'all know I'm bad at explaining stuff as it is. Now I gotta do it with you quacking in my ear all the time.
I can't help it.
Why don't your explanations make sense?
Here's how we're gonna do it. I have chosen 3 anime, and I am going to describe the synopses, but there's gonna be blanks left in these synopses. In these blanks, our contestants, Alan and AJ, are going to choose words to fill them, and they're going to see how close or far or hilariously wrong they are from the actual synopsis. We're going to take turns, and then the last part of the game is going to be a special round where both of you participate. So for this first one,
Are we both doing all 3, or are we flip-flopping?
well, if you would let me continue, you would find out. Alan, you're doing this first one.
Okay.
And I'm going to let you fill in the blanks as we read along. Does that make any sense?
Yes, I love it. Thank you.
All right. So this is, I'm not even going to tell you the anime title just in case like you've heard of it accidentally, even though you probably haven't.
That's smart.
All right.
You're learning.
So for this anime, blank and blank.
Martha and Caillou.
Martha and Caillou travel to blank.
They speak and speak.
Mesopotamia.
For blank.
Hand jobs.
Martha and
Save the
and
children.
Caillou travel to Mesopotamia for hand jobs. Their goal to understand modern Japanese society. While there, they find a place to blank.
Score some coke.
They find a place to score some coke in Tachikawa, Japan, and live as blank.
Nuns.
They find a place to score some coke in Tachikawa, Japan, and live as nuns, the worst nuns in history. While amongst mortals, the duo engage in blank and blank.
Murder and theft.
Murder and theft and even blank.
Even. Oh man, I already said murder. And even necromancy.
And even necromancy. Okay. Martha and Caillou travel to Mesopotamia for hand jobs. Their goal to understand modern Japanese society. While there, they find a place to score some coke in Tachikawa, Japan, and live as nuns. While amongst mortals, the duo engage in murder and theft and even necromancy. All right, here's the actual one. The anime is Saint Young Men. Jesus Christ and Gautama Buddha travel to Earth for vacation. Their goal to understand modern Japanese society. While there, they find a place to rent in Tachikawa, Japan, and live as roommates. While amongst mortals, the duo engage in beer drinking, blogging, and even playing video games.
Dear God.
Even playing video games. They even lower themselves.
This is a manga?
Task.
It's an anime.
What's it called?
I'm
Saint
gonna
Young
watch it.
Men.
Oh, yeah, you did say that.
Yeah. Kind of
That
want to
doesn't
watch
make any
it.
sense.
Kind of want to watch it. I probably
Saint
won't.
Young Men.
I'll probably get bored with it after like a couple episodes, but it'll probably be fun to try.
I like the premise a lot.
Yeah. The only reason I say I get bored is because it's super slice of life. So it's them just doing regular shit the whole time.
Yeah.
So
I'd be interested to see the depictions.
they're pretty funny. I won't spoil it
All
for
right.
you, but yeah, go check that out. All right, AJ, your turn.
I'm ready.
Miki is a recent blank.
Prostitute.
Miki is a recent prostitute school grad who takes her first job
She went to school for it.
as the manager of an blank.
Brothel.
Takes her first job as the manager of a brothel known as the Secco Boys. Miki really hates blank.
STDs.
Miki really hates STDs, and she can never blank them well.
Cure them well.
And she can never cure them well, so she avoids them like the plague. Even it doesn't sound like it.
The plague that they are.
Unfortunately for her, the 4 members of this group are exactly that. However,
They're STDs.
apparently, Miki seems to be the only person to wonder why these STDs are in an idol group. How they can blank without blank their blank.
Oh no.
How they can burn without entering your pee-pee hole.
Miki seems to be the only person to wonder why these STDs are in an idol group, or how they can burn without, what'd you say, penetrating their pee-pee hole?
Entering your pee-pee hole.
Entering their
Yes.
pee-pee hole, or why she has to blank them around to every concert.
Jerk them around. I don't
Or
know.
why she has to jerk them around at every concert. Crap, I don't know if I'm going to remember all of yours. Miki is a
It's
prostitute
fine.
school grad who takes her first job as the manager of a brothel known as the
Brothel.
Secco Boys. Miki really hates STDs, as she can never cure them well, so she avoids them like the plague. Unfortunately for her, the 4 members of this group are exactly that. However, Miki seems to be the only person to wonder why these STDs are in an idol group, how they can burn without entering the PV hole, or why she has to jerk them around to every concert. Real version. The anime is called Secco Boys. Miki is a recent art school grad who takes her first job as a manager of an idol group. That's a boy band group, for those who don't know, known as the Secco Boys. Miki really hates statues, as she can never paint them well, so she avoids them like the plague. Unfortunately for her, the 4 members of this group are exactly that. However, Miki seems to be the only person to wonder why these statues are in an idol group, or how they can talk without moving their lips, or why she has to cart them around to every concert.
Mine was better.
I mean, it was. However, I still don't think it was quite as strange as the real thing.
What a bizarre
It's very bizarre.
premise.
It's very bizarre. Apparently,
That's why I love
Bow
hate
ties.
anime, because
Yeah.
premises like this can make it to publication, and in some ways it's great, and in other ways it's just like, come on.
well, apparently it's a supposed to be a commentary on the culture taking advantage of youth to become like big stars. You know, all the controversy behind like J-pop groups and more recently K-pop groups, because K-pop groups are more big now. But I mean, J-pop groups are still big in Japan, just not as much over here, maybe otherwhere overseas. All right, so this is the final round, which you are both going to participate in. This might be a little clunky, but it's an experience. It's an experiment, so it's all good. So I'm not going to give you the hints. I'm just going to give you words to pick. So, actually, you know what? I'm going to let both of you alternate. So, Alan, give me a plural noun.
Katanas.
AJ, give me a what's the word I'm looking for? An unfortunate human interaction.
An unfortunate human interaction. Killing someone's dog with your car.
Jesus.
Ooh, that is unfortunate.
It's very
More-
unfortunate.
A little worse than unfortunate. Might
Alan,
even be
give me a
tragic.
verb.
Cook.
Did you say? Oh, I thought you said cuck.
No.
I guess that's a verb.
I mean, it can be, kind of.
Cuxatani Phil says cook is a verb.
Alan, give me a
Cuck.
noun.
Envelope.
All right. AJ,
Cuck the envelope.
AJ, give me a noun. Actually, yeah, do that.
Paint bucket.
I've also accepted bucket.
Alan, give me an adjective.
Prickly.
AJ, give me a verb.
Falling.
It's not. Fall's a verb. Falling.
What's that called? A
Pri-
gerund? Did you give him a gerund?
I think that's a present progressive.
Fall. Verb. Fall. To fall.
Alan, another verb.
Eat.
AJ, another verb but past tense.
Squazzed.
Why'd I start typing that like that's real? Give me a fucking real word.
It's the past tense of squeeze.
Squeezed?
I was like,
It's
am
the
I
past
the only one
tense
who
of
realizes
squeeze.
this word is not real?
Yeah, I went
No, for real.
autopilot. I just started typing before I was like, what the fuck? All right,
Squoze.
I'm going to read the real one
Squoze.
first. The anime's punchline. Yuta Iridatsu lives in Korai House, apartment complex with 4 girls. One day, following a bus jacking incident, he finds himself ejected from his own body and becoming a spirit. Guided by the cat spirit, Chiranosuke, Yuta must learn to master his spirit powers in order to protect his housemates. However, if Yuta sees a girl's panties twice in a row within a short amount of time, the Earth will be destroyed by a meteor.
What?
Oh my god.
I love how both of you covered your face at the same time. That was great. All right.
What is this obsession with panties? Okay.
All right.
anyway.
So here's your guys' anime. Yuta Iridatsu lives at the Korai House apartment complex with 4 katanas. One day, following a killing someone's dog with your car incident, he finds himself cooked from his own envelope and becoming a spirit. Guided by the prickly spirit, Chiranosuke, Yuta must learn to master his prickly powers in order to fall his housemates. However, if Yuta eats a girl's panties twice in a row within a short amount of time, the earth will be squeezed by a meteor.
Squozed.
Squazzed, apparently.
Oh man.
Who won?
That
And
Who won
nobody's
that
winning
wasn't
here.
a who wins game. That was a, I don't know. That was a drink.
Fill the first half of
That
the
was
show
a drinking
game.
game.
What are we doing here anyway? What's really going
that was a
on
drinking
here?
game. It was like D&D. You're just building a story. That's all.
That was fun.
Lean in. Lean in.
So now that we got that out of
do
the
that.
way, what is next, Mr. Host?
We're gonna talk about this old
Taylor.
pack rim. Pack rim black.
Taylor.
Pacific Rim.
Pacific
the Black.
Rim the Black. I forgot. There's 2 Pacific Rim movies,
Yes.
right?
There is.
I didn't know there were 2. I forgot there was. I thought there was only
I think
one.
I only saw the first
Pacific
one.
Rim, just Pacific Rim, and then Pacific Rim Uprising.
Okay. Yeah, I didn't see that one. The first one, in my opinion, was fine, but not great. It reminded me of that movie Battleship, based on the board
I've
game.
never seen that movie, so
Didn't
I'm
really-
not going to be offended by you saying that.
Well, I mean, it did what it had to do to be a movie. No, it didn't really do much else for me.
Did you see either,
I mean,
Alan?
No, I have not.
I saw the first one. I fucking love that movie. I'm a huge fan of that movie.
you didn't see
I saw the
second
second
one?
one. I did not love that movie.
What was wrong with the second one?
Uh-oh.
I won't say in comparison to the first one, because neither one of them obviously are like, super great films. But I'd say in comparison to the first one, it wasn't as bad as it could have been. But to me, I had the same opinion of that one as you have of the first one. Like, it kind of happened, but all of the reasons why I liked the first one weren't really present in the second one. And I will say that Guillermo del Toro was not involved creatively, I don't think, in the second one, which is probably the big reason why I didn't end up liking it as much, because that dude's a genius. And I guess to set the record straight for anybody wondering how I can love that movie, it's not a great movie as far as like the writing. The acting's okay. It's a great movie because the world's amazing. And the idea is a very cool idea brought to life in a way that heretofore has not been accomplished. Because, I mean, we all know mech stuff. We all know kaiju stuff. But seeing these gargantuan mechs, like really, really big, like humongous. Like they're bigger than Gundams. They're bigger than like most mechs that you are familiar with.
Bigger than Transformers?
Way bigger than Transformers. Transformers aren't even that big.
Bigger than Power Rangers? Bigger than Megazord?
Yeah, they're way bigger than Megazord. They're like,
Bigger than Dragozord?
yeah, Dragonzord.
I don't know. Megazord was the size of skyscrapers because they was fighting cities that were made of cardboard.
I looked up a scale. I don't know how tall the Megazord was, but Gypsy Danger, which is the main Jaeger, which is what they're called in the first movie, was 250 feet. So I'm gonna look up how
Gypsy
tall
Danger
is
coming at you
Megazord.
today.
Did you guys know Bryan Cranston was a Power Rangers monster?
Really?
Yeah.
He like
wore
acted one.
He wore the suit.
Like Goldar?
Yeah, like one of the monsters. Like one
I
of
thought all the
river-
monsters were in Japan. Were filmed.
You
in
know, now
Japan.
that I said it out loud, I thought that too. But apparently not.
Huh.
I
Well-
didn't dig too deep into it. It was a tangential
All right,
conversation.
You read a headline somewhere?
I'm getting contradictory reports.
Someone else said it.
On the Bryan Cranston story?
I Googled it and then I saw a picture of Bryan Cranston and also a picture of a Power Rangers monster. So I just like connected the dots and stuff. That's what I do.
Bryan Cranston
like
did play Zordon in the Power
He played
Rangers
Zordon
movie.
in the later movie, but apparently, like early in the show, he played a monster.
Interesting.
They did on occasion have the monsters like in like parks and stuff. Like
Yeah, that's true. That is
Grab it.
true. That show was fun. Fun show. But what about Pacific Rim the Black?
Taylor, sorry,
And then
All right, why do you keep saying that? Because I don't remember that being such a thing.
I don't
It
really
wasn't-
either.
that much of a thing, but it was enough of a thing for me that I don't know. It just stuck with me, like because her voice is really unique. the one of the main characters has this like husky kind of baritone, like
His sister?
like drinking, like binge drinking, chain smoking, college dorm girl next door kind of voice.
You're talking about his sister.
Yeah,
I
kind of.
guess I can see that.
Yeah, man, she sounds like she smokes. It's true.
Yeah.
Probably.
Just let us go. Just let us go.
All right,
it was a good performance. She's a good voice actor. Just the voice kind of stuck with me because you don't hear voices like that very often in anime style productions.
Okay, it looks
This
like I
was
was
produced
wrong
by-
about the height. I guess Megazord is bigger than Gypsy Danger. At any rate, what I was saying
Yes.
before.
Megazord.
I knew it.
At any rate, what I was
Megazon.
saying is, the way that
Did I
the
say
movie was
Megazord?
done, it did the mech fighting in a way that made you actually feel like the robots were super huge and gigantic, and that there was all of this force behind their blows. And like I thought the art direction was really good, and the battles were really immersive, and I did like all the characters, and the action was great too. So it's just a fun movie as far as like a creative exercise goes, even though, you know, it's not going to take away any Oscars or anything. The second one, it just kind of paled in comparison. It wasn't as cool. It kind of streamlined things, made it all feel a little more Japanese, which there's nothing wrong with that. But part of what made Pacific Rim cool is that it didn't feel like a Japanese mech movie. Like it felt like this new thing that was really fun. So at any rate, for those who don't know, we should describe what Pacific Rim is, specifically Pacific Rim the Black.
Pacific Rim
Kaiju.
Black is a Japanese-American adult animated streaming television series based on the Pacific Rim franchise. I like how they called it a Japanese-American, because that is true. The plot, I'm pulling this straight from the source, Wikipedia. Set far into the future, a race of monsters called Kaiju arise from the Pacific Rim and overrun the continent of Australia. I honestly did not know they were in Australia, but it makes sense because all the accents.
Gonna be guess. Let me
Australia.
guess. Watching in the background like you do everything else.
Well, how often do they mention that they're in Australia? I mean, other than the accents.
Enough.
The one guy has an accent.
One guy.
That's
It's
all
not
you need
one guy.
to know you're in the outback.
Humans build gigantic armed robots. Jaegers. Just kidding. Jaegers. To fight back. I actually hate that name, by the way. But we'll get into that. To fight back.
Jaegers.
But fail, and the continent is abandoned, leaving only isolated pockets of survivors. Teenage siblings Taylor and Haley Travis are left behind by their parents, who leave to combat kaiju but never return. 5 years later, Haley stumbles across a long-abandoned training Jaeger called Atlas Destroyer, which she and Taylor activate and set out on a quest to find their parents. They not only have to deal with the marauding kaiju, but other survivors who are also fighting for survival and attempt to seize Atlas Destroyer themselves. Okay.
Dang.
So it was done by a Japanese animation studio, but produced by Americans.
Yep.
Dirty, stupid Americans.
Polygon Animation. Is that what it's called? Polygon Studios? Something.
Polygon Pictures.
Polygon Pictures. They brought to you such titles as Alan's favorite, Blammer, and
Blammer.
Knights of Sidonia.
No shock there.
Two things that Alan and I love very much.
Two stinkety stankwads.
It was
Actually, I was really into the Knights of Sidonia, but I couldn't deal with the choppy animation and like their faces.
Knights of
I think,
Sidonia
were
was
really-
so bland that it hurt.
the way it looked,
Yeah.
right? Is that what you're
Yeah,
talking
it was
about?
just so bland looking. I
Yeah.
should read the manga one day, but
Yeah, I thought the world was compelling, but not very nice to look at.
Yeah, I have no interest in the anime. I should check out the manga because everybody raves about the story so much. And then we've talked about Blamu before. If you haven't heard that episode, I forget what number it is, but look for it and listen to it.
Look for it on the Broke Otaku podcast
Just
website,
listen to all of them until you get to
podcast.brokeotaku.com. Blamu.
If you hit the subscribe button, you'll be redirected to Goober Eyes.
Goober
So-
eyes. Put goobers in your eyes.
So did you, AJ, have any other comments, or should we get into our impressions?
No other comments. I did find it interesting that there wasn't even the option for a Japanese language track.
Yeah,
So
they didn't even
It was a
bother.
purely
the-
collaborative effort made.
purely collaborative. If you thought anime and you love Japanese and you love subtitles, you are SOL, because this is not for you.
Which it feels like most people
But I
don't
did think it was.
want subtitles these
I
days.
did think it was. Maybe. But I think that's partly because the dubbing has gotten much better than it was many years ago. But some people are purists, and I get that. And this is the Broke
is that the
Otaku
reason you
podcast.
think-
We talk about what we want.
Is that the reason for the decline of civilization, you think, Mark?
So far,
yes, it's all dubbing's fault. Because you lazy bastards don't want
I
to
agree.
read.
Yeah, and then you don't read, and then you get dumb.
Yep. So read your books and read your shows.
Read your shows. I'll start, if you
Go
don't
for it.
mind. I liked this show a lot. I thought the dialogue was good. I thought the writing was good. I thought the story was good. I didn't realize how much depth there was to the Pacific Rim lore. I just thought it was monsters and robots, and we gotta fight them and punch, punch, punch. And they dead now, but now they're not. They come back. Part of that might be because I forgot the movie. I don't know. I haven't seen it in forever. Whenever it came out was when I saw it. And it wasn't really like, I didn't love it much, so I didn't really dig into like the background of it. But I think what they did with this story and the characters surrounding the story was pretty good. And I think a lot of the reason I liked it was because none of the characters were annoying. Like, I wasn't like, oh, here's this person being over the top and ridiculous and stupid. They were all like relatable, and they were all kind of funny in their own way and real in their own way. And they didn't have personalities that just didn't make sense in the context of the situation. All of them had personalities that kind of fit with where they came from and what they were currently doing. And I think that was something that was kind of a breath of fresh air. Like, honestly, in anime, you don't get that a lot. And I know it's not anime, but we're an anime podcast, and we usually watch anime shows to talk about. So I'm comparing it to that. You usually have the over-the-top person who like should not be alive because of how stupid they are. And I don't feel like you get that in this show. I feel like everyone's there because they are serving a purpose. And it really has kind of a Walking Dead feel once they get to kind of the spoiler, I don't know, like episode 3 or 4, get to the colony of people, or the group of people that they're now trying to escape from. It reminded me a lot of Walking Dead and how you can't really trust the people as much as you can't trust the monsters. So the situation that the monsters created by being there now impacts everybody around them, and they have to deal with that as much as they had to deal with the fact that monsters could pop up and eat them at any moment. So yeah, I thought it was good.
I'm gonna just go ahead, Marcus. So if you were trying to go, fuck you. I thought it was good. I liked it. I'm not gonna say I liked it a lot. I thought it was like B pluses across the board, maybe an A- here and there. But at first I was like, oh, this is gonna be bad, because I thought like the parents saying goodbye in the beginning. I was like, ugh, this is going to be these little kids and blah. And then they did the time skip, which I missed. And I was like, wait, they're older now. I must have like looked away for a second. But anyway, they set up this tension between the siblings, which was cool. It felt real to me, like more than I expected it to. I feel like the writing helped the story a lot. Like even when the plot kind of got a little silly, or like kind of went in circles, the writing itself was solid. Like the dialogue was always, it felt pretty natural. But yeah, in general, I thought it was good, not great.
This is a hard one for me because I love the first Pacific Rim so much and everything it stood for in my mind, as a creative endeavor from Guillermo del Toro and what he was trying to achieve with it. So watching this show, I had to completely divorce myself from the idea that this was going to be anything like the movie, because I knew it wasn't going to be. Because firstly, it's an animation style I don't like, which the number one thing that I like about Pacific Rim, the movie, is how it looks. So I'm like, it already is going to fail there. So in order for me to enjoy the show at least a little bit, I had to just like completely go, this isn't Pacific Rim. This isn't the movie. Like it's some other thing it shares the same universe, kind of. But what I'll say for it is that I was glad that it did differentiate itself from the movie a lot, because that did help me not to loathe watching it for every second. So I guess I haven't officially said my opinion yet, but like I thought it was all right. I haven't decided if I'm going to watch the next season. This first season is only 7 episodes. They have a second season greenlit already. And I mean, at only 7 episodes, like there's a lot left on the table to resolve. And even though I thought the writing was decent and I thought the characters were good for the most part, there's really only one character that I didn't like that much, and we can get into that later. It didn't really compel me that much to keep watching. But I did think that it was a well done show overall, even though I hate the animation style a lot. So from here, we can go ahead and just get into spoiler territory. Any topics that you guys want to dig into a little harder?
I took notes as I went, so I don't know. Let's talk about like the animation, I guess, and like this style that
the thing we shit on every time we come across
that we love and hate. So for me,
I don't love it. I fucking hate it. I just hate it.
I actually didn't mind it so much this time, and I don't know if that's because like I'll have to go and compare it. Was that?
I said the story was decent.
Well, it didn't feel as like choppy as the other thing. I call it chop motion. I don't know what you call it, what it's actually called, but I'm calling it chop motion.
It's officially
so that's what I
chop
mean.
Motion. Ever since you said that one time, it's officially chop motion.
I mean, I don't know what, I can't think of a better name. So if you can, go ahead. But it didn't feel as choppy as the other things that you mentioned, like Blame and Knights of Sidonia, which that style really turned me off from Knights of Sidonia in particular. And just anytime I see it, I'm just like, ugh, this again. It worked for me. Maybe I'm just used to it, but I thought the kaiju looked really cool. They moved a lot smoother than is a little bit of a clash with like the sort of cell shaded like pseudo anime style characters, but the I don't know, it was like the colors were bright, and trying to think of why else I liked it. I don't know, the way like the cell shading kind of like, I don't know, forget what I said.
I would say like I mostly didn't notice it. There were a few parts where I did notice it. Probably the dancing scene was the most noticeable. It was
dancing scene.
It was bad. Terrible. I mean, the scene itself was like, okay, I get what you're trying to convey. It maybe went on like a minute too long. And and the animation
Yeah.
was just, that's when you really notice like, ooh, this animation's pretty bad. I mean, I don't.
And I want to clarify, I actually didn't have a problem with the scene. I thought the scene was fine. I just hate that animation. And like you say, it was highlighted extremely.
And I would think that
dancing
that would be the probably the most jarring scene as far as animation goes. Like there's a few other scenes where I notice how choppy it is, and I'm like, that just doesn't look right. But for the most part, like I think they made it consistent enough that it wasn't like, oh, this scene looks super smooth and awesome, and this other scene looks like choppy crap. So it didn't really bother me. Like it wasn't super jarring going from scene to scene and seeing chop, 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 and then super smooth animation and chop, chop, chop. Maybe it happened more than I noticed, but it didn't distract me that much, except for just a handful of times.
So the
I have a comment about that.
So the kaiju and the mechs, the Jaegers, are like fully, 30 FPS or 60 or whatever.
Right.
And then the characters, like the people and everything else, pretty much is this choppy, like 15 or whatever frames per second. So that's a clash, but I mean, you kind of get used to it. And maybe I'm just like, I got past it pretty quickly, because I really wanted to give the show a chance. I wasn't like out to hate it from the beginning, like I am with some things. So yeah. What else about the visuals?
I feel like I noticed it the whole time. But I'm super sensitive to that stuff. I was going to say what you said, Alan, about the monsters and the kaiju like are fully smooth, and that makes me more mad anytime when it is choppy, cuz I'm just like, make the whole thing smooth. Like I don't understand what the decision is. It doesn't make any sense to me. But I think part of the reason why it's easier to get used to is that the action doesn't hinge for the most part on the human characters, the characters that look cell shaded and are animated at that reduced frame rate. But I mean, even when they're walking, even when they're doing other stuff, it's still choppy as shit. There were a couple of scenes, I do not know why, but they seemed to be animated at a higher frame rate. And I noticed it when it happened. They were really small interstitial scenes, interstitial cuts where I was like, that was just animated smoothly. Why did they animate this smoothly and nothing else? Especially a scene that's like so inconsequential. There was one where they were in the city of Meridian, I believe, and the camera was just like panning to establish that they were walking in the city. Lasted about 2 seconds. Completely smooth. Like the surroundings, the pan was smooth, and even the character models were smooth. After that, it went back to the jumpy, jerky stuff. Don't know why. But like I said, this show doesn't really the human models don't carry so much of the action. So most of the time that you're seeing the animation look like that, they're talking. Or they might be doing simple movements like just walking or sitting down or like turning their head or, tossing a tool or something like that. But I think that part of the reason I was able to get through it without really hating the show, because I didn't hate the show, even though I hate the animation style, is because the voice acting was good. The writing makes sense, which I guess for our Western sensibilities is kind of refreshing, because a lot of times like anime writing just is like, all right, I guess Japanese people understand stories differently than we do, because the way that the characters are interacting don't really make sense. And in this show, it felt very much like the type of show that would air, except that this is for like adults and there's like murder and blood and stuff in this show. But it felt like similar to like a Dragon Prince or the new Voltron that came out like a handful of
years
ago.
I'd say it feels a lot like Castlevania in a lot of ways. And that the storytelling is in such a way that I guess back to what you said about anime stories. Like anime stories are sometimes they're just kind of bullcrap. Like it just doesn't make sense. Like, what are you doing? Why is this character acting this way? And it's, a lot of it's over the top compared to an American told story. And obviously anime is different than this because this is, basically an American story told with a Japanese animation studio. But, I guess the thing you lose by it not being an anime is that it does take itself very seriously, and there's very few parts that are legitimately funny or over the top, which is fine. Like, that's just the style of the show that it is.
Yeah. Okay, I guess I'll take back my scorn of you. It does feel a little bit more even keeled, where I won't say it feels like Castlevania, but it has that in common with Castlevania, where it is more even keeled and not, it's not really extreme in any sense. It's not trying to be too cool. It's not trying to be too wacky. It's not trying to be too action oriented, but it's not being too dramatic either. It's like a balance of all of it that's just set in the world. It feels very much like a Western team wrote it rather than an Eastern team wrote it.
Yep, and I think that helps it a lot because it makes the characters more relatable and it makes the characters and what's happening to them more interesting. And even I think it was the character Joel. Was he the guy with the glasses who was trying to fix the Jaeger? And like what happens to him in episode 6 or 7?
Yeah.
That was like I liked that character, but I wasn't like...
It's like episode 5.
Well, he goes through a lot.
I think it was 5.
He goes through a lot. Because
with where his brain gets melted or where he...
Well,
boom.
All of those things, yeah. I mean, the fact that he's an interesting character by himself, in that he's, kind of there against his will, but he doesn't really have a choice but to be there, and he's the only guy who can work on Jaegers. And then they do the mind meld thing with all these drift. They do the drift with all these crappy pilots who aren't even pilots. They're just basically grunts. And he loses all his usefulness, so to speak, and he's trying to cover it up. But, the fact that that character in an anime would have been either this throwaway character that wasn't very interesting or this over the top, just ridiculous stereotype scientist guy.
I feel like he probably would have been all pervy and obnoxious if it had been an anime character.
Right.
But
in this, he's just a dude who's just there, who happens to know how to fix these things, and he's just trying to survive. And then at the end, it's out of nowhere, gets his head blown up. And it's, for me, that was one of the moments in the show where I was like, oh, wow, this show just got super real.
That was an oh shit moment for me, out loud.
Right.
Yeah.
And I don't get many of those from shows. So
yeah,
you want to know something? You want to know something funny about that? So Faith and I watched this together, and we watch plenty of anime where people get decapitated, impaled, murdered in all sorts of grisly ways, and we don't really react that much. But in this show, we had several oh damn moments because we felt like we were watching Voltron. She super loves the new Voltron on Netflix. She's watched all of it. And I never got into it, but I watched enough of it to know who the characters are. And I've seen some of the important battles and character development scenes and stuff like that. So shows like that, even though they're in robots and they're people have swords and they're fighting wars, they don't really show.
Well, even in this, the first couple episodes, it didn't show people flat out die. And technically it didn't show him flat out die. Well, I mean,
they did.
Not violently.
Yeah, they did.
Directly.
Not violently, but I'm saying show it. So,
right.
So what I'm saying is we're in a mind space where this show feels like a Voltron show. So we're not doing it consciously saying here's what we expect. We just found ourselves feeling that way as we're watching the show. And then all of a sudden you see a kid, a teenager's last moments as he's staring at his friend knowing he's going to die right before he gets stepped on a kaiju. They didn't cut the camera away from it and show the reaction of the friends like they would in any other show. Like, you see him, you see the foot go on the ground. Yeah, you don't see any blood or gore, but you see him die.
Yeah.
Like, when you're in a mindset of like, I'm watching Dragon Prince, I'm watching Voltron, and then all of a sudden that happens, it reminded us, oh wait, we're not watching one of those shows. So that happens in like the first episode. I think the second episode is when you see the two dudes get eaten by the kaiju, and they show a bunch of blood spat out.
Entirely too
mouths.
much blood.
That's another
Yeah.
Yeah, that was another oh shit moment. Little kid gets shot in the head. He doesn't die, but still, damn. They show the kid gets shot in the head before you know he's magic. You figure he's gonna be magic because it's like this
found him in a
boy
lab,
they found in a. They found him in the lab and he broke glass with his mind. So you know he's gonna be magic, but still, the fact that like they show that in all of these other shows that feel more American, they don't do things like that. So since we're watching it and it's not Castlevania, like it's not this like grim dark vampire tale. It's this tale about these two teenagers in this brightly colored ass Megazord looking thing called a Jaeger. You're not expecting for like adults to attempt murder on children or dudes to get their heads blown off by a sabotage bomb.
Yeah, and I kind of had this on with my 12-year-old son in the room. He was only kind of watching it, but yeah, that first episode, it wasn't it wasn't bad. Like he would be fine with whatever's in that show, but like, yeah, if you think that this is something you can watch around like younger kids and it would be just fun, lighthearted, it's not that kind of show.
It looks like it from the art, though.
It does.
You look at the promotional art.
Yeah. So, like, the show kind of has this identity crisis where, like, it wants to be an anime and it wants to be, like, a mecha, but it also wants to be dark and it wants to be, like, gritty and, like, grim. But it also wants to have like big action and explosions and violence. It's just like it tries to do too many things at once. And like honestly, for everything it tries to do, it does pretty well. Or it does okay for, as thin as it kind of spreads itself.
I don't feel like it spreads itself thin. I think it has the right amount of bounce. Like I was thinking about this as I was watching the show. Like at the beginning of the second episode, I was like, okay, so they're going to walk through this town and then something's probably going to attack them. And it does. And then they get saved by, big monster kaiju / Jaeger combo guy. But at that point, I kind of realized, okay, like they're striking a balance between progressing the story, moving from scene to scene and having the action in it. And I think, overall it is an action show. And I think they deliver for the most part on the action. I think it's interesting, but also they're telling a decent story of, the situation that these people are in. And I think they do a pretty good job of it.
Yeah, I feel the same. I don't feel like it overstretched what it was trying to do. For me being sort of lukewarm on the show, like I do have to admit it does a lot of things really well. Especially since I was coming in with a bias and I made it through all 7 episodes not annoyed at all. That's actually kind of a feat when it comes to me because I'm a picky bitch.
I think it has the benefit of having only 7 episodes. I think if you drug it out to 12, it would it would feel too long and unless they did something drastic with moving the story forward.
6 to 8, I think, is a sweet spot for any.
It is like you can
show.
Consume it quickly. It doesn't like it. This is essentially a 2.5-hour movie.
Yeah, well, just from a writing perspective, it's like you don't have to. There's no need for filler. It's restrictive enough where like you are forced to kind of make cuts, and pick and choose the things that you do include, and you're forced to be considerate of that. And yeah, it doesn't ask too much time. And yeah, I think it's a good like format for to start with.
And it ended, spoiler. Remind me where it ended. I think it ended with them killing the one kaiju from the beginning, and then they
killed Copperhead, which is the kaiju that would not die.
And they had a lead on their parents.
So it had a lead on their parents. The boy turned into the kaiju. He did not transform back yet. It kind of seems like they don't know how they're going to get him to go back because he was freaking out. And they got a lead on their parents because they found their parents' kaiju that was
Jaeger,
damaged. And wow, the Jaeger that was damaged, but the parents left a recording basically describing what happened and said like what their next move was.
And they might have died, they might not. We still don't know. And then also May, the like battle-hardened soldier, big bad underling, or right hand of the big bad, kind of like turns on him, but there's a complex like father, like pseudo-familial relationship going on there. And this is what I mean by like the identity crisis. Like you got the tension between the siblings, which is fine, great. I thought it was going to be more about that. So like the first episode, I'm like, oh, this is deeper than I thought it was going to be. Like, cool, we're going to get into like some stuff. And then you got them drifting together, which is like you basically split your mind, or like you feel their memories and you share your memories. And like at some point it resulted in like you get each other's skills and experiences. So like you're basically like mixing your brain with somebody else's. So like if they knew how to paint and you didn't, after you drift with them, you know how to paint now.
Can I go super nerd on you for a second?
Please.
Okay, so that's not a thing that's normal, which is actually a very cool thing about this show. Talking about this show, I'm going to have to admit that it's good because the more I think about it, it did a lot of awesome things. But so they basically take the idea of drifting and expand it. Drifting normally, you are privy to each other's experiences and memories, but that's not a normal side effect with a normal successful drift. The reason why like that melding was happening, they had a word for it. They came up with a term for it. Is because if you drift in a way that you aren't supposed to, a way that's like without scrubbing, I think is what they called it, when Taylor, the main guy, he goes into the pilot log of the one kaiju to experience the former pilot's last experiences. He did that without this thing called scrubbing. So that's why his memories were integrated into his own. And he felt like he was that person, but only in patches of his mind. And the same thing with the guy Joel. The only reason why his brain got fried and he picked up other people's skills was because he was doing consecutive drifts. And there's this thing called being drift compatible. You're not really supposed to drift with anybody. There are certain people that you're compatible with. And even those people that you're compatible with, you have to learn how to drift with them properly, because you're not supposed to get caught up in their memories and stuff. You're supposed to let them wash over you and just focus on like what the moment is in hand. It's kind of like meditation, which is really fucking cool. But yeah, anyways, I just wanted to point that out, that's like not a normal thing that happens. It's a cool thing that this show is adding to the lore of the universe.
Yeah, and like honestly, just the idea of all those intricacies and like risks and kind of like mental health aspects of like drifting and piloting this mech kind of gave it like an Evangelion kind of feel, where like you get messed up in the head from doing it too much. So before long, you got everybody basically drifting with everybody out of necessity, and then Taylor drifts with this ghost AI thing, and then they wishy-wash together, and then he comes out with all these skills that this super soldier dude had, or this experienced soldier, this experienced pilot.
Did you catch the throwback on that, Marcus?
Of course I did. Herc Hansen, fucking beast.
I didn't.
Co-pilot of Striker Eureka.
I had to look that up because I was like, this is probably a callback to the movie that I don't remember. And so I did.
And it was a cool Easter egg because they were like 3 pilots are the only in history that have been recorded to pilot alone. It was awesome because in the first movie, it was only 2. So that means Herc Hansen, sometime after the first and second movie, was in the situation where he had to do it. So it did do a lot to expand the universe for people that know about it. Yeah, they fuck. I gotta like this show. They referenced like the Jaegers from the first 2 movies, and like they never pinpoint exactly when this movie takes place. They only infer it, but based on the information that they do give you, Faith and I had to look it up because since we didn't like the second movie that much, we had to watch it. We had to like look through Wikipedia to like see everything that happened. But it squarely takes place after the second movie. We just don't know how long. It could be like 5 years. It could be like 20 years. You just don't really have any clue. And that's another thing that's kind of cool. It's kind of almost the opposite of anime, where anime has to explain everything. This is just kind of like, yo, here's kind of the world. You don't need to know all the details. What's really more important are these characters and their relationships with one another and the journey that they're
I appreciate.
God damn it, this show's
I appreciate the subtlety.
It is, it is good. Well, then you get into like, so you got this, like I mentioned, the relationship between like the big bad and his like lieutenant, who is May, this like, cold shoulder or like kind of icy lady who kind of develops, like she has like a good heart and she wants to help, and she ends up helping the brother and sister, and she's friends with the cool like engineer guy. But then it's like all of a sudden he like knows all this stuff about her, and he like drops this bombshell like, oh yeah, those memories, they're not really real. I don't know why I didn't tell you this sooner. So that kind of felt forced with trying to develop them and have her kind of gravitate towards the main characters to help them out.
Yeah,
it was funny too because Taylor was even like, dude, your timing sucks, because they were in this crunch time when he decided to tell her. And then she gets all mad and wigs out. And so it was refreshing that he was just like, dude, you got the worst timing ever. Like, we got a bunch of other shit to think about. Like, couldn't you have said this after?
Right. And
yeah.
But I guess, devil's advocate though, I guess the reason he told her then is because that's what actually got her to leave him.
Yeah.
The guy's name is Shane, by the way, the big bad that we're talking about.
Right.
So maybe that was why. But
yeah, I think it was a timing thing. Like, he saw the opportunity because they had the Jaeger to make an escape from under the big Shane, the Australian guy. And so he said that. But back real quick.
Did you have
to the drift thing? I feel like they play it kind of fast and loose with the rules of the drifting. Because I do remember from the movie you had to kind of sync up and be compatible with people, but in this one it's just like, oh, let's see who fits. Okay, these main characters happen to fit together. Nobody else really does, which is okay. Like, I don't think they did it wrong. It just seems like there's not a lot of consistency with the rules of the drifting, and it's a little ex machina in a way. Like, we got to get out of here. Oh, hey, there's a rule that you can solo drift with this ghost thing. Okay, perfect. That's convenient. Oh, and now you can drift with your brother and sister. That makes sense. But now this other girl can drift too. And then she can drift with the other girl because they're all, triangularly compatible. So just a lot of convenience in that little group there, which, it's not a big deal. Like, it doesn't bother me. I'm more just kind of observing that if not careful in the next season, like that, the whole concept of the drift can just become this kind of tool to move the story forward in somewhat silly ways if they're not careful.
Yeah, I mean, I guess it didn't bother me that much because at least with that convenience, they bought interesting story. Like, right. They used it. So I'm willing to forgive an aspect of a thing if there's a trade-off there that's worthy of it. And I felt like this is one of those weird, rare instances where the trade-off was worth it. Because the way that the different minds interacted allowed them to play with that space. Even though it's kind of bullshit because like I said in the first movies, you had to be compatible, and there was like a whole process to being compatible with someone. And the only time that two people piloted that never piloted together before was because one of the pilots was this super ultimate badass who was like first generation Jaeger jockey that he was so in control of his mind. He was just like I got you figured out from day one. I know what your issues are. And me, like, I'm so fucking zen. I don't even bring anything into the drift. Like, you have no access to my mind because that's how focused I am. So it's like, at least that's believable because this dude is the leader of all of you. And he was one of the first dudes ever to pilot a Jaeger by himself. So I'll believe that he can just pilot with anybody. But yeah, for these teenagers to pilot with each other, and then like a girl that's never even stepped foot in the Jaeger before to be able to do it, and she's fucking mentally unstable anyway. Like, right. And I don't even want to say unstable. She just got baggage. She just needs some therapy because her life was fucked. Like, not her fault, but you shouldn't just be able to step into a Jaeger with somebody and then not really mess them up, you know.
And they're teenagers anyway. Every teenager's mentally unstable to a degree. So the fact that they're pulling it off at all feels like kind of a miracle.
So can I talk about the one blemish on this show that I actually don't like, besides the animation style? I do not like Shane. I don't like his character at all. And the reason why I don't is because for everybody else to feel like such real people with like reasonable reactions to one another and motivations that are understandable and flaws that even if they are frustrating or regrettable, they make all of the sense in the world. Like, for the most part, anytime somebody does something stupid, it's like, I'm not like, that's a dumb way to write that character. I'm like, fuck, why'd you do that? You messed up. You shouldn't have done that. But it's believable within the world. Shane is so fucking evil that I'm like, I don't understand how everybody around him hasn't just killed him already. Like, fuck this dude. He's the terrible leader, and he inspires no loyalty whatsoever. And the best villains, the most evil villains, and my wife brought this up because I was complaining about it. She was like, well, what about Negan in Walking Dead? He was like super fucking evil, right? I was like, there's a difference. Negan is surrounded by people that he treats very well. He gives everybody a carrot to hang in front of him. Yeah, he's pretty brutal with the stick, but he gives you a pretty big fucking carrot if you fall in line. Like, there's a whole bunch of like right-hand men and lieutenants and a hierarchy that he's built that he's like, if you contribute, you can be treated like this and no one will be able to touch you except for me. You always got to bow to me. But everybody else, like, you don't have to worry about them because if they fuck with you, they got to deal with me and they got to deal with all the other people that have gained my trust. Shane treats every motherfucker like shit. Like, worse than shit. You know, like, he's telling his guy that's in charge of his Rangers when they need to find a pilot for Joel. He's like, go over there and drift with Joel. I don't care if it's dangerous. My accent's really great, by the way.
Spot on.
But
I don't care.
Yeah.
Just do it, mate.
And it's like,
and
they're all fully aware that their brains are going to go to mush. And he runs through like 100 and something dudes, like capable, able-bodied guys just to try to pilot this Jaeger. And then the guy...
It almost made me wonder if like the writers, or as they called them, were like not real people. Maybe they're just like robots or like husks or something. Like, but
they're all real people. You can't... Two humans have to drift. Yeah, except if you're ghost drifting with the Jaeger itself. But even so, you're drifting with the imprint of a human psyche. There's drifting with a kaiju mind that happens in the movies, but we ain't gonna talk about that yet. That might happen. That might happen in season 2. But
kaiju brains.
But yeah, but like there was nobody around him. The closest person to him was his like adoptive daughter, which, by the way, he just decided he wanted a daughter and kidnapped her from her family, and then put a gun in her,
erased her memory.
put a gun in her hand and said, "Hey, kill people for me." Like, that's the person he treats the best. So why would any of these people around him, like, not just be like, you know what? Fucking no, dude. Fuck you. Like, we're killing you. You treat everybody so bad. You threaten everybody with death, even if they make reasonable mistakes when you have unreasonable expectations. And I'm going to get even nerdier right now. So there's this guy, I think he's like a evolutionary neurologist or behaviorist or something like that. Anyway, he was saying that the definition in like baboon tribes, the definition of a good alpha male isn't just the strongest baboon with the biggest dick. Like, a really good alpha male has to treat like the betas and the gammas and everybody else really, really well when they deserve to be treated well. He only like regulates when there's like a part of the tribe that like is way out of line, and then he has to flex his muscle. Because if there's an alpha male that acts like Shane does, they get ripped to pieces by every other baboon in the tribe. Like, they mutiny. That's why mutiny is a thing. Humans do the same fucking thing. That's why we have a term for it. Like, you can't be this like complete despot. Like, you have to surround yourself with people that have a reason to want to like follow you and work with you. Like, they have to see a benefit in being subservient to you. Otherwise, people are going to rebel. So him being that way, it was just off to me. And like, of course, anybody that's that evil, you're going to hate anyway. So it just made me hate him more. And then it was funny because my wife, she was like, I don't even feel anything from him. I hate his dumb face. He looks like a Lego character that they tried to make all grisly. That's like the art style makes the anime people look really pretty. But as soon as you try to like have a person with detail and stuff, it looks like shit. It doesn't look good.
Yeah, his facial hair looks like.
She's like when he smiles and his eyebrows move, they like barely move. Like, it's stupid. He has like the emotional range of a Lego, and I'm like, they all do. The problem is he has too many facial features, so you notice it. All these other like super nice, plain, pretty, sleek, anime-looking characters, their mouths don't move any more than his does. Their eyebrows don't move any more than his does. It's just that there's no wrinkles and shit in the way that are all stiff around their facial expressions. So you can't really tell.
Yeah, I didn't really... I was going to say, I didn't really... I guess I didn't notice the issues with Shane. But now that you point him out, like, yeah, I did actually at one point in the episode just say, like, why don't they just shoot that guy? Like, there's no benefit to him running the thing, you know?
I guess it's supposed... it's kind of... I guess my assumption is that, like, he has some amount of wealth or power or influence, and they're in this basically wasteland. The whole idea is, like, the Black is this zone, or they abandoned the continent of Australia because it's been overrun by kaiju. So the Black is, you know, the military organization that's fighting the kaiju just said, you know, we can't save this place, and they get out. So whoever's left there is left. So that's what the Black is, and that's where everybody is. That's why the situation is so desperate. I guess my assumption was that he has these people around him because he has some amount of, like, he can keep them alive, but they have to, you know, follow him or serve him or whatever. So,
yeah, I guess to betray
him
him
at all.
Yeah, to betray him would open them up to other groups to take over, which could be worse. But
but they don't make it obvious as to why. Like, you got to give me a reason to believe. And like, there's already...
I mean, they hint at it when they're doing the battery deal that, like, he doesn't take any crap from anybody, and that there's other groups that are out there that are a threat, but you never see those groups or what they're capable of, or, you know, it's more just kind of a, hey, this might be a thing that happens to you if I die. You'll get taken over by these other groups, which could be worse, but they don't ever flat out say it or even really hint at it outside of the story elements that suggest it.
The people only fear the king if his guards fear him. And like, no, not even fear. If his guards are to be feared because of him, and if the people surrounding those people are to be feared, and the people surrounding those people are to be feared, so on and so forth, are respected. That, you know what? Fuck this whole analogy. I did it wrong. There could be a dude out in the desert by himself that doesn't take any shit from anybody. If I got a gun and he doesn't, I don't give a fuck who he is because he doesn't carry any influence. What is influence? Influence is being able to influence other people. How are you able to influence other people? You have to have a good reason. Either like they want something from you. You're cool. You're knowledgeable. You're fair. You're whatever. Like, we don't know what he has other than he's a dick.
I think it's just wealth. Like, I think he's just rich for, just because he is. That's kind of how they... Like, he always wears a suit. He's well-groomed or whatever.
But what is wealth in a world like that? Like,
exactly.
What's that mean?
Well, I mean, it's kind of like where you started. Like, if he's got a lot to begin with, when the shit goes down, he's got a lot to, that people. He's got what people need. I don't know. They don't explain any of it. So this is just my kind of assumption based on the situation. But
here's what I've said to my wife in a conversation before. When you're trying to explain when you're trying to answer an important question in the story, the more assumptions you have to make, the worse that part of the story is developed.
Oh yeah, I mean, they should have explained it better for sure. But here we are.
So not to like jerk myself off or anything, but like when I got all nerdy about the drift and like the rules and stuff, I could explain that. I wasn't making assumptions. These were all things that were explained to me. I didn't even use the second movie because I fucking barely remember that. I was able to just use the first movie, which we rewatched because we got in the mood after we started watching The Black, and what I've seen in The Black. I didn't assume anything. I was able to just straight up tell you. But when we're trying to answer the question about why, as soon as you start saying, well, maybe, or I just kind of figured, or I could see that, it's like, they fucked up. They did something wrong.
Yeah, no, I'm not saying they didn't. I'm just saying that that's kind of how I interpreted it.
Right. And
they could spell it out in season 2 and say, oh, well, this is the reason that these people follow him, and this is the reason.
Yeah, and I think they'll dig more into Shane's backstory, I think. Maybe.
And I guess here's what okay, sorry. I'm getting overzealous. But I guess that's what my problem is that Shane is the least interesting part of the story to me. So,
yeah,
like, I have these questions around why this dude is such an asshole, but I really don't even care about that. I only really just want him to die. Honestly, I was kind of wishing May shot him in the head. Like, then I wouldn't even need an explanation. I'm like, cool, he was a dick because, like, we needed you to be empathetic to him dying.
Yeah.
But they didn't. So, I mean, yeah, maybe in the second season they explore that more, but really, I don't care about that. Like, I want the things, if I were to watch the second season, which, I mean, I might now, but the things I care about are, does May open up to the rest of the gang? What's the deal with the boy? Are they going to get any closer to Sydney and finding their parents? Are they going to get better at piloting the kaiju? And how so? What other kaiju are they going to meet? So on and so forth. Those are all the things that I care about. I don't care about this evil dude with a stupid face.
Well, this is why I say that the show spreads itself too thin, because we got all these other things going on. And I was like, once the boy came into the picture, I was like, oh, fuck, they're going to do what every anime does, where like some shit happens and nobody wonders why, and everybody just moves on like, oh, the kid just got shot in the head and there's not a mark on him. Like, he did a double backflip when the bullet hit him in the forehead, but there's not a mark on him and he's fine. And they're just like, huh, that's weird. And then they go about their business. So, like, I was just waiting for the whole thing to fall apart, and it it didn't. It hasn't fallen apart yet, but then
they're walking on thin ice because there's a lot of
Yeah.
ways that this could go that could end badly. Like with the kid, with Boy, that
and then, like,
Boy's story is a
Yeah.
little. It's very anime.
Yeah.
yeah.
Like you said.
Yeah, he doesn't say anything, and he's like a little kid, and he's like,
Right.
you know, the sister's all protective from him, Haley.
But it's not bad
And-
yet. But it could be bad if they're not careful.
Yeah. And I was gonna say something, and I forgot.
You
what
were
it
talking
was.
about it being spread thin. There are all these other threads going on.
Yeah, well, and like he tells them to leave, and then he sends the one guy after to kill them. But then they get the best of him, so then somebody else comes and brings them back, and now he wants them back because their brother's missing. And it was just kind of like they're just gonna go back and forth with like, hey, you need to go, but no, come back. I'm holding you hostage now. And it was just kind of like this silly thing to like get everybody in position for the big escape. So yeah, it's barely believable. And then you get the action where like the kaiju like bites a dude and there's like 10 times as much blood as like for like
It
one
was two
person.
dudes, so only 5 times.
Okay, I didn't realize it was 2 dudes, but still like way too much blood for how much human was in there. And yeah, the nuke, they blow him up with a
Yeah, that
nuke,
was a little much.
and his head, it's just like this little
That
explosion.
was a little much.
Like, yeah, I know it was in his mouth or whatever,
for-
in his
For
gullet.
him, yeah, for the kaiju to not be vaporized, I don't like
Yeah.
a nuke. That's too much. Especially, we're talking about a
They didn't
future
even have to
nuke.
call it a
It's a-
nuke. Just call it a
mega
warhead or
bomb or
a
some
cluster
shit.
bomb
Right.
or a call it anything but a nuke, because a nuke is not what.
Yeah,
what that
and we're
was.
considering like this is like a future nuke. So who knows how many megatons of
A mini nuke.
TNT that would be? You know,
Yeah,
No, it's
I
just
want
a tiny one.
I want to get back to the action a little bit, because since we're talking about kind of like the anime vibe of it mixed with like this dark thing, but there's also high action. It felt very slow. Like you saw the fist going through the air and they're running, and here comes the fist and there's the punch, and then like one guy gets, he's in the Jaeger and he gets pinned by Copperhead, and you can count to 12. I rewound and I counted. I was like, all right, he's pinned, and this shows me he's in the cockpit and he's doing this and he's doing that, whatever he's doing to fight back. But like the whole time, like what's the kaiju doing? He's got him pinned. You can count. I counted to 12. So 12 seconds, this thing has him pinned and nothing's happening. And I know like, stories do that all the time, action movies, for dramatic effect. But it was just like, damn it, like something like surprised me.
well, this is exactly what I was saying, that this show was not going to be able to pull off the way that the movie did. The first movie in particular, because the second movie, the action did kind of speed up and it felt a little bit more Power Rangers-y. But the first movie, because it's a live action movie with hyper realistic, photorealistic CG. Like the Jaegers feel like weight. Like they the way that they move and the way that they look, and even the kaiju too, they all feel very heavy. So when you see them moving the way that they do, and then the camera angles that Guillermo del Toro, why did I say Diaz? He chose kind of accentuated that fact. So like it's believable that these battles are slow because the scale of it is so humongous that it's about as fast as these things can move. So when you see the fastest Jaeger that they built, which was in the first movie at least, it was Striker Eureka, the one that Herc Hansen pilots with his son. Like it's moving really fast in comparison, which is impressive, but like compared to any other action you'll see, it's still pretty slow. but it feels fast because they did such a good job of establishing the scale and the frame of reference for how these battles play out. But when you have like a CG animated thing, nothing really is going to be able to feel heavy because like the metal doesn't look like metal. The mask doesn't feel like mask, especially everything's like all bright and colorful too. It's like nothing feels dirty. Like everything, like the first Pacific Rim movie was highly saturated, but they did more with light. The actual base color of all of the settings and the Jaegers themselves and even the kaiju, like the base colors weren't anything. All the color came from just like really high intensity light reflecting off of things. So, like, you probably won't dig the movie, but I'd go online if you get a chance, and like watch it on a computer screen and do full screen. See if you can find like a 1080p or higher high res of just like a Jaeger battle. First movie, not the second movie. And I think you'll get a better understanding of why the battles were supposed to be slow and stuff like that. In the first movie, it comes off as really dynamic and you feel it, especially when I saw it in the IMAX. Like, I was fucking geeking out so hard. It was so great.
I might rewatch it because the show did kind of get me interested in the lore again. And it came out in 2013. That was, 8 years ago? Yeah. So I haven't seen it in a very long time.
Yeah. I feel like if you go into that movie understanding that you're not watching this for great acting, you're not watching this for great writing, you're watching this for the spectacle of it and for characters that are likable enough, that are easy to root for, and just to see shit that looks cool. Like it's a fun time if you can go into it with that mindset.
And I will. Final thoughts?
Check it out.
It's getting late.
Yep. It is. We've been doing this for a while.
I recommend it. Check it out. It's only 7 episodes. You can do a lot worse. High praise. You can do a lot worse. Marcus?
You could, considering what you liked last week.
I didn't like it.
I think this show does a lot of things really well. I'll say, while I'm more on the side of you, AJ, where I don't feel like this show really overstretched itself. I do think that because it went in so many different directions, it didn't really hit me hard as like very good, because it's not just doing one thing and pulling me in that way. It's kind of like, oh, that's nice. I like that. That's nice over here. Blah, blah, blah. So it's a pretty decent show, but I will say, like, if you're a Pacific Rim diehard, specifically the first movie, for you to enjoy this, you have to forget the first movie. You have to not expect this to be anything like the movie, because all of the reasons why this show was worth watching are the exact opposite reasons that the movie is worth watching. The movie's worth watching because it's great artistic spectacle. Like it like the feel of it, the sound of it, the look of it is what you're there for. And it's a good time. This is a show where it's like the action and the animation ain't that great, but some of the ideas are pretty cool. And the characters are more fleshed out, and the voice acting is really good.
Alan.
Yeah, I get when you put it that way, when you explain like, oh, it's not necessarily spread thin, it's just that it does so many different things that none of them really hit you like hard. Like I agree with that, and I guess that's kind of what I was trying to say. I guess you put it better than I did. But I'm gonna stand by what I said about it being good but not great. I think it's unique, but you have to kind of like don't expect anything. Because, like, if you see mechs and kaiju, you're thinking, like, oh, there's going to be big battles, lots of guns and explosions. Like, it's not really the first real fight with the robot. He gets his arm ripped off, and, like, he starts off with no weapons, and it's just kind of this... It more serves to develop the characters than it does to, like, create these big set-piece action moments.
This show's definitely more lore and story-heavy than the movie.
Yeah, and that's not a bad thing. It's just that you would, from the billing, you would expect something different. Like, I hadn't seen the movies, I had no expectations, and I was trying really hard not to judge it ahead of time, and I think that helped a lot with kind of appreciating what they did well. So yeah, and it's 7 episodes. It's like 2 or 3 hours.
Just do it. I also realized
just watch it.
The fact that I finished High Rise Invasion,
Dumbass.
Yeah,
I can never not finish another series, or I'll be.
Yeah, or you'll be a piece of shit for
I'll
finishing
be.
that and not.
That'll be held
At
over
least
my
one
head
that's
forever.
at least not one that's shorter than 12 episodes. Like, if it's 12
Right.
episodes, you're fucked. You gotta
Yeah.
watch the whole thing.
I draw the line at 13 bags of garbage.
All right. We'll wrap it up then. Thanks for listening. Follow us on Twitters at BrokeOtaku, at BrokeOtakuCast. Check us out on YouTube, where I have to upload like 3 episodes because I'm way behind on that. Follow us. Stop shaking your head, Marcus.
I make thumbnails every couple weeks for this fool, and he doesn't even remember to post them.
You're so
It
awesome.
It always ends this way.
It does. My failures as a human being. What else do I fail at?
Not posting deals.
BrokeOtaku.com. Did I say that? Posting deals?
Don't fail at posting deals.
Yeah, most of the time.
Post them deals.
I post them
If
sometimes.
deals is getting posted, get on it.
I'm getting on
with
it. I need life to stop happening.
I'm talking to them, not you. He posts the deals. Go get the deals. That's what's getting posted.
Go get them. Life needs to stop happening so I can start focusing on stuff I like to do more, like this. Or just prioritize my time. But now I have to go get buff and ripped, so I'm going to go start trying to bench press. Do some body weight exercises.
Shamed. Before the show started, Marcus was
I
body shaming
shamed
AJ.
no one.
Yep.
That is not what happened.
He said I don't care about being ripped, and I'm going to prove him wrong.
He said, obviously you don't care about physical
Look,
fitness.
I'm not the one that called you a fatty fat. I weigh 500 pounds.
No, I said he
Because
lost
weighed
400
500 and
pounds.
some pounds.
Yes, indeed.
Anyway.
All right. And that's the show, guys. Thanks for listening, and we'll catch you next time. Bye.
Thank you.
y'all.
I love you. Good night.
Oh, yeah.
Well.